turbulent week for the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who is now facing a parliamentary investigation into claims he allegedly misled MPs over Partygate.
And with the upcoming local elections expected to reveal the true impact that the scandal has had on the government, we're joined by the man who believes it is time for a change, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, and welcome to you. Thank
Morning.
you. It's your first time on Our Sofa, isn't it?
It is.
So
and just looking at the food over there, it looks fantastic.
So,
well, you're welcome.
And then the view of the Mediterranean was absolutely brilliant as well. So I've got to have a return if I get through.
You are welcome back whenever you like. I think we should start with some of the stories that were over the weekend, actually. Particularly yesterday, there were two stories. And the first one was attributed to an anonymous Tory MP that wrote this story in the Mail on Sunday. And what was said was that Angela Rayner likes to put Mr Johnson off his stride by crossing her legs when they clash at PMQs. And I know that Boris Johnson has come out and condemned this quite furiously yesterday. But there was also another story, and this was a story in the Sunday Times that reported that 3 cabinet ministers and 2 Labour shadow cabinet ministers were facing allegations of sexual misconduct. And you sort of look at these two stories together and you think this is not a nice environment for women. And I just wondered what your take on this. You know, is Parliament safe for women? Is the Labour Party safe for women?
Well, I saw the Angela Rayner story, as everybody did, and it's rank sexism, rank misogyny. And I spoke... You had Angela on just the other week. She's a fantastic woman.
Lovely.
Formidable woman, brilliant politician. And I spoke to her yesterday morning just to see how she was. And she was just really disgusted that all of her political attributes are sort of put aside for this ridiculous, offensive story. And Anne shouldn't have to put up with that. You know, Angela's story, she's battled so much. She's a formidable woman in her own right. But as she readily said when we chatted yesterday morning, she shouldn't have to put up with it, but all women in politics shouldn't have to put up with it. And almost every woman in politics has had an element of this in some shape or form.
So what are you doing then in that case for certainly from your side of the benches? As Holly said, you know, there is an investigation into shadow Labour MPs and sexual misconduct. How across it are you?
I mean, the investigation is independent, so nobody knows the details of that. And, of course, that should take its course. There's, you know, what the Conservative Party do about the person who made these comments about Angela Rayner is up to them. I actually think it's a culture thing, and therefore going after 1 or 2 individuals isn't enough. We've got to change the culture in Parliament. The culture in Parliament.
Is it misogynistic?
It's sexist, it's misogynist, and we need to change it because... For politicians like Angela, they are absolutely entitled to make their political arguments in the same way as everybody else. And that's what really Angela said to me. She used this expression, she said, it triggered something in me about the way that women are seen in politics. It's quite, you know, a very emotional thing and a deep thing and a political thing.
How do you go about changing that?
She has the right to make her political arguments and not be seen and not be discussed.
So how do you go about changing that?
I think the culture of the whole place has to change, and we all have to play a part in that.
So what part are you going to play?
Parties. Well, the first thing we have to do is call this out, obviously, for what it is, look across the whole of Parliament about the behaviours that are there. I need to look at it within my own party, wherever we see it, of course I do, and we'll be absolutely on it with zero tolerance. And I want to see all politicians doing the same thing. There shouldn't be a party political divide on this.
There have been 2 female Prime Ministers, both of them Tories. So at what point do you, as a party, accept women can be leaders and Prime Ministers?
Oh, I accept that already. And... you know, of course, we haven't had a Labour Prime Minister yet. I'd hope we have one day. I very much hope that when we get to the next election that we have a female Deputy Prime Minister, and that will be Angela Rayner. And what a fantastic thing that would be. Angela, as I say, a formidable politician, a brilliant member of our team, and I'd love to see her as Deputy Prime Minister. She would be absolutely brilliant.
So do you think it would be years before there's a female Prime Minister from the Labour Party?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously... we're going into this next election. I'm leader of the Labour Party and I want to be Prime Minister of Britain. But Andrew and I are a team. We work together, we discuss things, we go, you know, we run up the pitch together, we run back down the pitch together, and she will be Deputy Prime Minister. I think that's a very, very good thing. I think it's good for politics, but I just think that Angela Rayner's got something very special as you will know from having her on here, about her political contribution and what her as Deputy Prime Minister would say for the country. It'd be, in my view, fantastic.
Let's move on to Partygate, because obviously there's lots of questions around this. And obviously Boris Johnson he's apologised for becoming the first sitting Prime Minister to be sanctioned for breaking the law. He now faces his third-party probe to investigate whether or not he misled Parliament. I guess the question for you here is, as the opposition, do you think you've held him to account over this?
I do think we have. And, you know, we've got this extraordinary situation with the Prime Minister being found to have broken the laws that he made. And at first time a Prime Minister has ever been in that position. We've never had a Prime Minister in this country who's been in that situation. And now this inquiry into whether he's told the truth to Parliament. And so I do think we've held him to account. And the reason for that, I think, is because this is a very raw issue for so many families, because there were the awful cases of funerals that people couldn't attend, the births that not both parents could attend, the weddings, etc. But almost every family had something that they didn't do because of the rules, and they almost beat themselves up because of it. And, I mean, my family's not immune from that. My wife's father is 93, and he had to go and shield during COVID. We've got 2 young kids. My wife works in a hospital. It was the obvious thing to do. But my wife had to sit on the pavement outside his house rather than go in.
However, in January,
I think every family has
in January,
that.
you refused to apologise over photos of you drinking beer and eating a takeaway with staff in the run-up to the May 2021 elections. This is at the same time when households are banned from mixing indoors. We all sacrificed that. None of us did that sort of thing. Now, I appreciate that it is a work environment, but at the same time, what is the difference between the Prime Minister walking into a room and someone singing happy birthday and you sitting down with a takeaway and having a beer? Well, one's within the rules and one isn't, and the police have looked at both of them and been absolutely clear there's nothing to follow up in relation to the incident that I've been much questioned about. There was no breach of the rules, there's no equivalence. At Downing Street, we've had 50 fines. I mean, we're at this situation where look across the whole of the United Kingdom, say which workplace, which place has been most fined for breaches of the rules, and it's Downing Street. And the Prime Minister himself has been found to have broken the rules that he made. And you know, some people say, oh, it's just like a speeding offence, Kier. You know, get a sense of proportion. Yeah, I just don't agree. I mean, nobody's ever broken down in tears in front of me and said, oh, that's because I couldn't go 35 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. But obviously, people have broken down because they've not been able to do the things they wanted to do during this, you know, what were very difficult times for all of us. A point that Holly made, which I think is really important. So we're discussing Partygate, we're discussing, you know, all of these fines. We're discussing excoriating is the Gray report apparently, and it could allegedly bring the Prime Minister down when finally this can that's been kicked down the road for such a long time. Yeah, we obviously need to see that report. So the point is, here the inflation is at a 30-year high, 7% in March. You've got a study from the Food Bank Trust, the Trussell Trust, found that 1 in 10 families are likely to use a food bank in the next 3 months. Yeah. With all of these things, with Partygate, with the cost of living catastrophe, and Ukraine on top of that, but YouGov puts you a mere 6 points ahead of the Tories. So Holly's point was, are you doing enough? How effective have you been in opposition, bearing in mind that you've been handed these gifts? Well, 2 things about that. Firstly, the cost of living crisis is very, very real. And, you know, across the country, people are really struggling to pay their bills. And the government is now whacking them for more tax. And this is a really big struggle for millions and millions of people. And we, the Labour Party, have got very positive things to say about that. For example, we say, you know, for energy bills, the oil and gas companies in the North Sea have made more money than they expected because of the high global prices. We say use that to reduce energy bills by up to £600. Don't bring in the tax rise this month, will be our position. On how well we're doing as a party, let me take that on the chin, because I took over the Labour Party when we'd just lost an election, the worst loss we'd had since 1935.
And we are now, as you say, about 6 points ahead in the polls. That is a remarkable change around for a party within 2 years. And I don't think many people... You'd have to be pretty hard to say that's not really good progress. Got another maybe year, maybe 2 years to the next general election. If we go on at this rate with the ideas that we've got, the change we want to bring about, I'm buzzing with ideas. I've got a fantastic team around me. We want to go out and show what we can do.
What are your principal ideas?
Oh, we want to grow the economy. We want to have an investment in our economy that grows our economy at a rate we've not seen for the last 10 or 12 years. We've got a huge project for future generation jobs when it comes to climate change. Big ideas about buying and selling more in Britain, making sure that if something is made in this country and contracts in this country ought to reflect the value to our communities. We absolutely want to turn this around. I get a sense that people now feel, look, that it is perhaps time for change. We've had 12 years of this government now, very low growth in that time. We've got highest tax for 70 years. And I think, you know, with our ideas on the table, we can make a real difference. But we have done a lot in that 2 years.
I imagine you'll be watching very closely at the local elections, which are coming up. Are you frustrated that the Metropolitan Police are refusing to reveal how many Partygate fines there are before that? So, because you want voters to have sort of an open mind, an open opinion and have all the facts.
I think that this should just be open and transparent and the police or anybody else should be clear about who's getting the fines. I'm not so concerned about some of the junior members of staff. I can see that it's difficult for them. But where you've got people in senior positions, I don't see why we shouldn't know all of the facts. But going into the local elections, my focus is actually not on Partygate, it's on the cost of living crisis, because that, I think, is where, you know, as I go around the country, so many people are saying, I'm really struggling. In Dewsbury, just 2 weeks ago, I had an 84-year-old pensioner with mobility issues who talked to me. And she said that she's been too scared to put the central heating on.
Yeah.
How would you
she's got a sort of warm dressing gown.
How would you cut
that.
fuel bills? What will you do about the fuel?
Well, the thing there is, we want to take hundreds of pounds off the fuel bills. And we've made a choice, which is the oil and gas companies in the North Sea anticipated a certain profit to reinvest. I get that, that's fine. Nobody wants to interfere with that. But this year, and in recent months, they made much more profit than they expected. Some of their chief executives saying more money than we know what to do with. So we've said have a windfall tax on that and use it directly to pay those energy bills up to £600 for those most in need. So it's a very practical plan on the table. We've got nothing equivalent to that from the government. I actually don't know for the life of me why the government doesn't do this. Because if you've got a choice between excess profits, unexpected profits, as the way to reduce bills, or saying to those that are paying the bills, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay them. The government says, well, we'll give them a £200 loan in October. That's a long time off yet. And, of course, then the person who's paying the bills has to pay it off for years to come. I think it's a straight choice. It's a pretty fundamental political question of whose side you're on, really.
So with the local elections coming up, and all of those, you know, individual, I mean, they're all horrible in their own right, whether it's Partygate or Ukraine or the cost of it, each of them terrible. But for an opposition party, something certainly that you've got to get your teeth into. With 6 points in the lead now, a 6-point lead, which you've explained, you know, it's a big turnaround. However, with all of those gifts, some would say that it should be a greater lead. And with you, and others have said that, you know, you're a nice guy, but a little bit quiet, a little bit ineffective sometimes. How do you feel leading the Labour Party into this election, these local elections?
Really good, fantastic. You know, to have taken the Labour Party from where it was, to have turned it around. Not many people say to me, Kier, you've not really done anything with the Labour Party. Most people say, look, you've done an amazing thing. In the past, it's taken years for a party to change that quickly, so we've done that. But the really good thing now is we get the chance to go for that election. I've got a brilliant team of people around me. I've got Angela Rayner, I've got Rachel Reeves, brilliant, strong women, actually, doing a fantastic, fantastic job. We just want to get out there and make that argument now. And whether it's the cost of living, whether it's about how we grow the economy, we've got those ideas. We're buzzing. We want to go out, talk to people and build on what we've already done. I'm not complacent. Build on what we've done and take the Labour Party back into government, because I didn't come into politics to be in opposition. I came into politics to change lives. You can only do that if you win an election. And we need to rebuild the trust between us and the electorate, and we've been doing that. Put the ideas on the table, put that combination together, and then we can really motor into the election.
OK.
All right. Thank you very much
Thanks
indeed.
for your time.
I would say stay for the lamb, but you're a vegetarian, aren't you?
I am a vegetarian.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a vegetarian that does it on principle. When people eat lamb or anything else, it's fantastic. There's the smell of it.
Well, there's a reasonable salad up there.
Well, we said to our children, you don't need to do what we do. So our 13-year-old boy, by the way, is just a little bit taller than me now, which is hard to take.
Is he really? Wow.
Well, he's taking it. So he's now got his McDonald's, his KFC every time we go out of the house. So he's exercising his freedom.
He gets his...
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.